design engineer at Ather Energy.
Hey, hi guys. So just to begin on a slightly note, that Bikash would unfortunately be not be able to join us today, right? Because he's not well, has not been keeping well for the entire day, and he really apologizes for not being able to make it today, right? Probably we'll make it up at some other time with his presence as well, because I understand that there might be some questions which are pertaining to his field of expertise, which I might not be able to do full justice to while answering them. So probably we'll make it up to you guys and have another session in which Bikash is also there, so that we can go in depth into all the questions pertaining to him as well. I'll apologize again on his behalf. Sorry.
It's all right, sir. So to get things started, Swagat, sir, can you please tell a bit about yourself and your journey, how it's been till now?
Yeah. Hello. So to begin with, I work as a design manager at Ather's industrial design team. So this team actually is uh, uh, to give you a brief purview of what my team actually does, or how it functions within Ather, is that anything which is related to customer experience or product experience is owned by industrial design team within Ather, and also the entire product design, right? Any product, whether it is the Ather 450, the Ather 450X, the Ather Grid, whatever comes out of the Ather, whatever comes down in the Ather product line is actually designed by us. When I say design, I'm talking about experience design, the aesthetics design, as in how the product is going to look, touch, like how the product is going to look, how it feels when you touch it. So all these things, all the colors, the graphics, and everything is being taken care of by the industrial design team. My role within the team lies currently as whatever the creatives are coming up with. It is my responsibility that I align uh, uh, all the products and all the requirements along with other teams, and we so as to in a manner where we can stick to the brief, as well as within the time constraints that we have and the cost constraints that we have. So my job is mainly to overview all of these things and make sure that the product reaches, the product meets the brief as well as the time requirements and is within the budget when we are finally able to put it out. And to talk about my personal journey, I actually began as a mechanical engineer. So I did my engineering from Odisha. After that, I was working with Renault's R&D department in Chennai. I was working in the vehicle architecture team there. And a couple of years I worked there, within which I realized that this is not a field that sort of excites me the way your profession should, your or whatever you are pursuing as your career should. And that's why I decided to figure out what exactly is it that excites me, and something that I'd be really motivated to do day in and day out, right? And uh, that's sort of when I discovered design. I had always been creative, like inclined towards the creative side of things, and towards the art side of things, but I had not paid, great attention to that trait of mine. And I was, one of the people who sort of went in the herd mentality way and sort of did engineering just because everybody else was doing it. But later I realized how wrong I was, and then that's how I discovered design. And the more I read about it, the more I researched about it, I found out that this might be the right calling for me, and this might be something that I'd be able to do for the rest of my life. And hence I pursued design after that. So 2 years after spending in Renault, I actually took a master's in design course, industrial design course, with at a college called DSK ISD, the International School of Design in Pune. Post which I spent 3 years there. 2 years were out of which 2 years were academic and 1 year completely was internship. I did 2 internships during that time. One was in Centroid, Chennai. It's a product design studio in Chennai, and one was in SS Turin in Italy, which is again an automotive design studio who has clients like Audi, Lamborghini, and Fiat, to name a few. Post which I came back again to India and I was working with General Motors for 2 years. I was in their design team, and post which I've been with Ather for last 5 years now. So 2015 is when I joined Ather. We had just moved to Bangalore at that point of time. Previously, Ather was functioning out of the IIT Research Park in Madras, and from there we had just moved out and come to Bangalore in 2015, and that's around about the time when I joined Ather.
That's quite a journey, sir. Now, can you share the journey of Ather? Like we all know that Ather started off as a startup at IIT Madras.
Yeah.
Like, can you please share the journey of how a startup from reached this huge level of publicity, and it's a huge electric vehicle company right now. So, can you please share the journey of how it translated from IIT Madras to where it is now?
Sure. So, bits of it I've heard it from colleagues. Bits of it I've heard it from friends. The bits when we were still in IIT Research Park, right? Because I had not joined back then. So it was started by two friends actually from IIT Madras, Tarun Mehta and Swapnil Jain. And Tarun was, I guess, working at Ashok Leyland prior to starting Ather. And Swapnil was working in GM, incidentally, which I later found out. Uh, and these guys in 2014, I think, that started working on the project, and it was mostly in on paper at that point of time, and very early prototypes were being done. They were still figuring out on whether we should have replaceable batteries or whether we should have fixed battery. What should be the vehicle architecture like? What should be the vehicle like? In fact, one of the early propositions that Ather had was, just to get just build the battery, get the rest of the things, the vehicle from China, and just sell it like that, right? But the more these guys try to figure out, but the goal always was to build a great product, right? And when they used to look at it from that lens of building a great product, the more they saw it from that lens, the more they realized that this mix and match of sorts, trying what like mixing and matching whatever is there already in the market and building something out of it will not actually will ever be able to give you the same kind of product experience that they were eyeing for, right? And that's how they sort of moved away from battery manufacturing just to sort of building everything from grounds up, everything from scratch. So those big decisions were made early in 2014, in the early times of Ather. And 2014 is when these guys also got a seed round of funding from IIT Madras, IIT Tech Park, actually, uh, the IIT Tech Park, IIT Research Park. And then because that also acts as an incubation cell, so they got a seed round of funding from there. And also later that year, these guys, we also got funded from the the Bansal brothers, right, who were founders of Flipkart. So they sort of saw the prototype. They sort of had a talk with Tarun and Swapnil on what their vision was about this company, and they got a little excited about what this could become. And they had invested a seed round of $1 million, and that's how the journey actually began. Post that is when we moved to Bangalore. Bangalore, actually, the first office that we had was in Indira Nagar, in a small house, in a 3 BHK house, right? And that's where we were operating for. That's, in fact, the place that I went for my interview. And it was very different from, for me, at least, coming from General Motors, which has like a huge office in an IT park, and coming to a small 3 BHK house, looking at these guys just moving around carelessly and working on something they really believe in. It was a great vibe to come back to, very different from the corporate vibe that you find in most of the big OEMs and big companies. So that's where so we were there in Indranagar office for a while, after which we moved on to, at that point of time we were around 50 odd people, and post that we moved on to a bigger office in Victoria Layout. That was after one another round of funding by a US based VC firm called Tiger Global. Post which we moved on to another office in Victoria Layout. While we were like, so I think Victoria Layout office was like, that phase was when we actually showed the vehicle to the outside world, and people started knowing about Ather. So there was this event which is called Surge, which is a tech event, and that's where we first unveiled the vehicle, and the world outside sort of got a glimpse of what this product is and what we are building. So till that point of time, nobody had actually seen the scooter in person. So that was the first time we showcased the vehicle. Post which we launched, the vehicle, and it came into market a couple of years ago, and that's how the journey's been. Right now, we are selling in 2 cities, which is Bangalore and Chennai. We have so next couple of years are going to be dedicated to just scaling up to the length and breadth of India and cover as many cities as possible. So that is where we are today, and that is what we intend to do in the future as well.
Wow. Okay, that's good. Thank you, sir. So in engineering, we are still exposed to IC engines. Like that is what we study in our core subjects.
Yeah.
But and I believe that's what you two have studied, sir. So can you please share what attracted you to EVs, and what any advice that you would like to give to correct mechanical engineering students who like IC engines? Anything on that?
That's a good question, actually. So, as a human being, you're always, like most of us, at least, the curious ones are always attracted toward possibilities, right? What it could be. That is something that sort of excited me. Even though I had no background and I had no past experience of working with any EVs, but this was something that really excited me just because of the kind of possibilities that lied ahead, right? This was an industry and sort of a domain which hasn't been explored. Even now, it is only picking up pace, right? It hasn't been explored to its potential. So to be a part of something which sort of can lead to something really big, and something which can become like a game changer of sorts in our generation, that is what's kind of excited me, at least. And I guess a lot of you might resonate with that as well. As engineers, I don't think most of my friends who are like hardcore engineers, they are also, if I sort of start thinking about them, they are also excited about possibilities, and what more can you do with the knowledge that they've accumulated so far. So they're always interested by that, and I think that is something we shouldn't forget. So even though it is not something which might be in vogue today, but this is definitely something that we will have to move towards to for more reasons than one. It is not just about sustainability. In fact, when if you look at us or our communication, how Ather talks to the customers, or its media communication as well, there are very few instances when we talk actually about the sustainability or the environmental impact aspect of this product, right? Yes, that is a benefit that you get out of being an EV, right? But there are so many other benefits just from a pure product standpoint. It's just a much more superior product as compared to an IC engine vehicles, right? So that is what it makes a great product. So it is basically building a great product. It being sustainable or it being eco-friendly is just another aspect of it, but it is not the core aspect of things, right? And also, like an analogy that I sometimes give my friends, engineering friends as well, and people who are a little skeptical. I myself, I'm a petrol head. I'm really excited by IC engines still, but the way we should probably look at it is also the fact, like if I can take an analogy from history, there were times when there were only two-stroke engines, right? A lot of us, including me, we still love two-stroke engines, but we eventually moved on to four-stroke engines, right? Because they made more sense, they were more practical, and they was better in so many other ways. While there are still things about the two-stroke engine that you'll still love, right? But you'll eventually move on to something better, which is better tech-wise and for a plethora of other reasons, right? Similarly, there'll be a shift from IC engine vehicles to another uh, another medium, another format, because it is going to be better for so many more reasons. That, and it doesn't mean that if you're adopting EV, doesn't mean that you don't like IC engine vehicles or you don't like IC engines. But it's just like mm, that there are some decisions which are like evolution. This is an evolution of of what an automobile product can be, and that is something that we cannot resist, at least not for long, is what I feel.
Okay. Thank you, sir. Now, could you please share what goes behind the design and development of an Ather vehicle?
Yeah. So right now we have one platform which is the 450, right? And that is what we've been working with so far, and that is what we've been bettering over a period of time, over the last few years, right? So if I were to talk about aspects behind design and development of the 450, it has been built up, like built grounds up, everything from scratch in house, because so in if you look at it, nothing on it is actually off the shelf, right? Even the switches, we've designed it ourselves, because of the kind of experience that we wanted to provide our customers, right? And because of the kind of vehicle that we wanted it to be, we couldn't find anything which would sort of help us build that product in the market available right away, right? So right from the rims to the switches to everything, to the mirrors, the lighting, everything has been designed from scratch in house, right? And even the tires are actually sort of been specially chosen, which have somewhat of a different compound, so that it suits our vehicle better, right? So everything on the vehicle has been custom made. When you're doing such level of from the ground development of things, you need a huge you need quite a bit of teams, right? Because a lot of teams, since it's a connected vehicle also, a lot of teams have to sort of work in sync, right? And the way that we've packaged the vehicle also, it is very compact, very different from usually what you'd see in the scooter industry today. So we have a vehicle engineering team, we have a vehicle dynamics, vehicle development team, which has the vehicle dynamics team. We have a dedicated software engineering team. We have a dedicated battery team, which takes care of the battery and the BMS. We have a separate electrical and electronics team, which works on the overall electrical electronic integration of the vehicle. We have a separate testing team. So there are a lot of others, smaller teams, which which work on the vehicle from grounds up. So right from the chassis, the design and development of the chassis, to the testing of the vehicles, everything is done in house. Even software plays a huge role, because in controlling the BMS and all the smart features of the vehicle, software plays a huge role. In fact, uh, the way we've designed this vehicle keeps getting better with each upgrade, right? Like how your phone keeps getting better over upgrades. With upgrades, the similar thing happens with our vehicle as well. And software plays a huge role, in bettering our algorithms all the while, so that we can give you maximum range out of out of the battery. Also, like each individual is rides the vehicle in a very unique fashion. So how the algorithm adapts to that, how the vehicle adapts to that, and how it is translated onto real tangible outcomes, which are like the kind of range that you get, the kind of acceleration curves that you get, the kind of performance that you get out of the vehicle, is all sort of customized. And hence each and every aspect, and each and every team plays a very major role into us delivering a product which sort of delivers the kind of experience to the customers the way it is.
Okay. Thank you, sir. And now, could you please, what are the possibilities of setting up a wireless charging in electric vehicles, and how different is it compared to plug-in, based on efficiency wise and all parameters?
Yeah, so this is a question that I think Vikas should have answered better, but I'd still give it a shot because I have um, few insights on it. So this is something in the first, like in the coming times, this will definitely become something, become a technology which will eventually trickle down to the automotive world as well. It has already started with consumer products. Phones are now getting wireless charging. Helmets are now getting wireless charging. Smart helmets are getting wireless charging. So there are multiple things, products like that, which already are utilizing wireless charging, and I don't see a reason why vehicles can't do that. But having said that, this is something that I don't see happening in foreseeable future. It is a while away from making itself to mass markets. It is still a little while away from there. The kind of efficiency levels that we have today, I don't think will sort of suit uh, the electric vehicle per se, right? We are struggling right now. I mean, struggling as in, like, we are still bettering our technology so that plug-in charging times could reduce as much as possible. So I think the focus is mostly going to be that, how to reduce plug-in charging times, and then eventually wireless charging will start coming into play.
Okay, sir. Uh, what played a major role in designing the looks and aesthetics of the vehicle, sir, since you yourself are a design engineer?
Sorry, I didn't get your question. Sorry.
Could you please share what inspired you and what is a major role in designing the looks and the aesthetics of the vehicle?
Yeah, so I'd like to give a shout out to Shantanu Jog, who's the actually sort of the designer for the vehicle. He was the first person in the design team to be hired within the company, right? And he's sort of, it is his sketch, which is now being translated onto the vehicle, right? Onto becoming the Ather 450 what it is today. Uh, so one of a few of the keywords that we've kept in mind while designing the 450, and which in fact which goes on to be true for a lot of our products, and which sort of is our design philosophy, is having a very clean design, very minimal design, something which is very pure and honest, in the way it looks and the way it performs as well, right? Which is very different from the current scooters or the current products that you see out in the market, which are always shouting out for your attention, right? In this loud market, what we've tried is we've tried to go on a little mute, and that by itself sort of creates the intrigue and uh, you know the differentiation for us. Also, what we've always liked are sports bikes, right? Like we've all been fans of sport bikes back at Ather. Like we all love automobiles. So what we've also done is there's a huge inspiration taken from sports bikes as well, especially if you see the exposed frame, the green frame that sits in the under the seat in the middle of the vehicle is in fact uh, um, uh, of some sorts, to an extent, been inspired by the trellis frame that you see on most of the big bikes, the sports bikes, right? So that is one. The upswept tail, the way you see the rear wheel kicks out of the vehicle, right? These are certain attributes which are inspired by sports bikes, and also how the tail is. Most of the tail, the rear of the rear of the scooters that you'd see sits like a skirt in most of the current scooters, right? Wherein if in the 450 you see it sits up high, which gives it a very sporty stance, which is again inspired by sports bikes. So since this was a fast scooter, right, we really wanted to look it a certain way so that it gives you that impression even before you sort of started using the vehicle. So it was very important that we use these elements from sports bikes and other inspirations so as to develop a form, a stance which is really aggressive and is really sporty and gives you a feel of being fast without even having ridden it, right? Even at standstill, it should give you a feeling of being a fast vehicle. So these are the kind of things that went into through our mind while designing the vehicle.
Okay. Also, before we move on to the next question, to the audience, you could leave your questions in the comments. We'll be taking it up at the after the discussion. So, yeah. Now, the Ather has a reverse. I mean, I wouldn't call it a reverse gear, but a reverse functionality. So, how did that idea come into play, and like how did it start off?
Yeah. So this was more like we can, so why not a level decision? But like while it started off on a fun note like this, right? Like why can't we do a reverse function? But and a lot of people actually have questioned in the past and still question on why do you actually need a reverse mode, right? But if you look at it, when you are in a parking, you know, in a parking lot and tight parking spaces where you have to do a lot of to and fro, a lot of small movements of forward and reverse in order to take your vehicle out, it really helps you brilliantly, right? Of not having to put in too much effort, but still be able to do the job as efficiently, right? Also, a lot of places you would have seen that the way our roads are, the road is at a certain level, and where you park it is at is at a level below. And for you to pull your vehicle out of there, you always have to get down of the vehicle, pull it out, and then use it. The reverse mode actually takes care of all of these customer pain points, which might not seem like a huge problem today, but once you start using the vehicle, this sort of starts becoming more and more relevant and more, you know, the product starts becoming more and more user friendly. So these are the small attention to details that we've given onto a vehicle, which adds on to the overall experience for the customers.
All right. So, like many companies have tried making an electric general vehicle, but you know, they haven't reached the success that Ather has right now. And I believe the core has to be with the BMS and the batteries. So, could you please share like what makes Ather's BMS and batteries different, and how is it able to achieve the range?
Yeah, you're right. Like the battery and BMS actually are at the heart of things and are sort of superior to most of the things that are available in the Indian market today, right? I can't go into too much technical details because it'll be out of my domain of expertise. So probably we can save this question for Bikash later. But having said that, while this is at the core of the entire product, there are a lot of other things around the product which is sort of given it the kind of success that it has. And it is not just the battery and the BMS, right? It is while the battery and BMS is something which is at the core of things, but there are a lot of other things that have supported onto it being a far more superior product than whatever is there in the market, right? The battery is supported by a great, a great charger that we have. It is supported by incredibly good riding dynamics. It is supported by a great motor and the vehicle to have, right? We have a great storage space. So there are a lot of things that actually have that when put together work as a complete package that makes it a better product, and not just the battery and the BMS. While they play a really crucial role, but there are other things that have sort of come along together, which makes the product the way it is.
Right. So right now, Ather offers the 450 in a single motor variant, right, sir? Yeah. So, like, what led to this decision? Why couldn't we go with a 450 with multiple motor variants? Like, why is it a single motor variant?
So, the thing is, if you look at the way the vehicle has been packaged, actually, if you guys can, I would suggest you guys to go visit whenever times are relevant. Right now, it is not safe to step out of your houses, but whenever you guys can, please visit the expo experience center that we have in Indiranagar. There's a naked vehicle there, so you'll be able to see the internals of the vehicle as well and how it has been designed from grounds up. So I think it'll be a great experience for you guys. And if you look at the way we built the vehicle, it's a very tightly packaged uh, vehicle, right? So having multiple motor variants wouldn't have given us the flexibility. We didn't have that flexibility because of the way the vehicle has been packaged. Also, uh, we think as a product it does great with the motor that it has, and it can sort of suit a variety of requirements right now, right? And we don't I don't think we want to be in a space where we have, like how a lot of IC engine counterparts like other OEMs do it, like have 100cc, 125cc, 150cc, then 180cc, like so many variants, right? That sort of doesn't make sense for it. We have built a scooter which sort of caters to requirements, performance requirements across a huge spectrum. And I think that that does enough for us to, try out different motor options. If we do that in the future, it'll be with different products, might not with the same product.
Okay. So in the beginning, you mentioned that the decision for the removable battery was taken back when the company was founded. So could you please share on why is it specifically non-removable? Why didn't you keep removable as an option?
Right. There are a few reasons why we went down this path, but what I know for sure, because I wasn't there when the decision was made, but during our conversations, it has come up multiple times. We talked about it a lot. But I think the kind of advantage that it gave us in packaging the vehicle right, correct, and in sort of the kind of so right now a battery sits down at the floorboard, right, which is very low. And as you guys know, battery sort of contributes to majorly towards the weight of the vehicle as well, correct? So having that battery so low actually helps us in having a great weight distribution, which sort of helps us in great ride and handling of the vehicle, right? If we were, say, suppose to build a vehicle which had battery swapping, then having a battery down so low wouldn't have made sense, because it becomes really difficult for a person to then lift the battery, correct? So you'd have to keep it somewhere higher up, which again sort of interferes with the kind of ride and handling you're looking for. So things like this, and there are certain things that we at Ather think fast charging is a much better solution than actually battery swapping, right? And is a much more efficient solution as well, correct? So these are few of the things that came into picture when we made this decision.
Okay, so now let's consider we have a designed vehicle and it's fabricated to a prototype.
Okay.
The design is ready to go into production. But before production, when it has to become a consumer product, it has to go through a few certifications, right?
Yeah.
So can you please share some challenges faced on that and any suggestions?
We've faced a lot of challenges, actually. In fact, we've been so, like, I think we were like within 6 months of production for 2 years, right? And when we did the first Surge vehicle, we thought that we are just 6 months away from production, but that was a very wrong idea to have. And we sort of realized there have been a lot of learnings on the way, right? So at any point of time, we were only 6 months away from production, but that's not the case the way it is, right? Sometimes there are hiccups, sometimes there are things that you realize that you'd have to do before getting into production, which you've not sort of thought of before because you're doing it for the first time. So there were a lot of things. But yeah, I think ARAI mandates the vehicle to be homologated first, right? So each aspect, like there are some vehicle level homologation requirements, then there are part level homologation requirements. So there's a lot of homologation process that happens before you can put your vehicle to the market, right? We can like going into the details of it might take a very long time, but there are vehicle level homologation requirements, then there are part level homologation requirements. So broadly, these are the two things that you mainly have to go through before you can put your vehicle on sale in India at least.
All right.
So
Okay.
these homologation requirements actually specify what kind of tests you need to pass and stuff like that. So
Okay.
when you go into the homologation requirement documents, you'll sort of get to understand what kind of tests on a part level and what kind of tests on a vehicle level need to be sort of addressed and completed for you to get a certification from ARAI, which allows you to sell your vehicle in India.
Okay, so coming to the safety tests, how does the safety team determine that the vehicle is safe, and what tests does it run? So,
on the test, I might not be able to give you the exact names. That again is a question directed towards Bikash. He would have been able to answer this better. But the testing team has to undergo, like, their main job is to make sure that the vehicle is functioning great and is safe at the same time. So there are a multiple number of tests that needs to happen. In the two-wheeler segment, I don't know if there are any safety rating tests as such, right? I'm not very sure of that, because on four-wheelers you have these safety tests or crash tests, which sort of give you the 4-star, 5-star Euro NCAP ratings, the safety ratings back at home. So all these ratings are there when it comes to safety. But similar tests for two-wheelers, I'm not sure of. But there are other tests that we need to carry out in order to make sure that the vehicle is safe, especially on the EV, from how a lot of care has to be taken to how your battery is performing, what temperatures are you reaching, what temperatures are you, setting your cutoffs to be. So things like this are become a little more important when it comes to EVs.
Okay, thank you, sir. Going to the future of EVs and Ather, does Ather have any plans to move on to bikes, cars in near future?
This is a question we've heard a lot. We do intend to expand our product portfolio and sort of venture into different segments. I won't be able to, I'm not allowed to right now comment onto what exactly those segments are, but we are looking at expanding our product portfolio. It might be two-wheelers, it might be four-wheelers, it might be three-wheelers, it can be anything. But we are keeping an open mind towards what we can build next, right? And we definitely want to intend to expand our portfolio, which you will see happening in over the coming few years.
Okay, that's great, sir. Can you give us a deeper insight on the Ather Grid project, sir?
Yeah, so Ather Grid is also a project which is really close to us, and we've really put in a lot of effort into doing that. Because when we set out to build this EV, what we also soon realized is that when it comes to adoption of EVs, one of the main deterrents of adoption to EVs for people is the range anxiety, right? Right now, if I go out, step out, and travel a couple of kilometers, I'll find 3 or 4 petrol pumps, right? So I don't ever have to worry about the fact that I'll run out of petrol and I might not be able to fill it. But that's not the case with EVs, right? There are 2 things to this. A is we don't have enough EV stations, EV charging stations, and B, the charging times are higher, correct? So this is a twofold problem. So we wanted to sort of address these issues, both these issues, and we are still trying to do so. So what we sort of did is we came up with Ather Grid, and we made a very conscious decision that whichever city we launch in, wherever we launch, we'll first set up the infrastructure and then sort of then start selling our vehicles. Because selling our vehicles and the customers still having that range anxiety in their mind does not make any sort of sense, right? So that's why we've always maintained that whichever city we go to, we'll first set up the charging infrastructure, which is the Ather Grid, and then we'll start selling. Now, with the Ather grid also, what we wanted to do was to have charging points at every 4 kilometers. So, like in Bangalore, you have an Ather grid at every 4 kilometers, right? At any point of time, you are 4 kilometers away from an Ather grid point. Now, when I'm talking about 4 kilometers away, it is not from a bird's eye view, right? It is actual drivable 4 kilometers. So there was finding out these locations as well was a huge exercise, and we developed a separate algorithm to sort of figure out what these what these strategic locations need to be as well, right? And also, what we wanted to make sure was before us, sometimes what people would do is they'd claim to have charging stations, but then they'd be in some corner in a parking lot where nobody goes to, right? That is not the kind of charging, that is not the kind of experience that we wanted to provide our customers. We wanted our customers to have a seamless charging experience as well. So that's why we've partnered up with cafes, with malls, places where people actually go to and sort of can spend some amount of time while their vehicle gets charged. Having said that, we also didn't want it to be the charge. We didn't want the charging to be, a very long process. Right now, with our current infrastructure, the fast chargers, you can do 1 kilometer per minute. That is the rate at which we provide charging, which is soon going to sort of get efficient by around 50%, if I'm not wrong. So the grid that we are going to do soon. That launch will happen in the near future, and fast charging is something that we are actively working on, and we want to reduce the charging times as much as possible.
Okay. Okay, thank you, sir. So now with the rise of Mflux, Revolt, Ultraviolet Automotive, should Ather be worried about its market, or is competition good, sir?
So the kind of attitude that we've had towards other people foraying into this sort of domain, we've not felt as much threatened as we felt excited, because the thing is, for EVs to become mainstream, which we really want, which is our ambition, it cannot be done by just one company or just one firm leading it, right? There has to be multiple people who come into this domain, who come into this field and sort of starts selling vehicles, right? So that there is more and more acceptance, the reach becomes much more, and it is easier. And there's also pressure on, the more people do it, there's also sort of is confidence inspiring for people who are willing to buy it as well, right? So that also happens. So hence it is important, and is essential, and we really welcome whoever forays into this market, because it is going to be really good for everyone, and especially with established OEMs like Bajaj and TVS sort of following our suit, and then understanding that there's a great potential in the EV space, and this is something that the society has to move towards to anyways, either today or tomorrow. They have also sort of done some high profile launches, which sort of is, a stamp of approval for the audience as well, that this is a space that we can take seriously, and this is something which we can, sort of move on to without having too much trouble.
Okay, thank you, sir. Now, sir, can you give us a sneak peek on some new project or tech that Ather is working on currently?
I'd love to, but I'm not authorized to. But there are some exciting stuff that is going on at Ather. Right now might not be the best time to talk about it, but in the near future you'll definitely hear from us on what we're working on. Hopefully you'll be able to see the glimpses of it as well. But definitely work is going on. There's some exciting stuff that we've done. There's some exciting stuff that will be coming up, which we'll be sort of getting involved in. There's the next update on Ather Grid, which is going to come very soon. Right now, also the fact that right now a lot of the organization, majority part of the organization is actually completely sort of you know is completely caught up with making sure that our product reaches out to as many people as possible. So scaling up is one of the major things that is going on, that most of the uh, org is caught up with, right? Scaling on to multiple cities. At least for the next 2 years, a lot of a majority of the organization is going to be, sort of focused towards that, towards working for that. So that is something that is going to happen. But yeah, like newer techs and newer products, we'll definitely talk about it and discuss about it when the time is right.
Okay, no worries. Can you please share the work experience at Ather before the lockdown and how is it now?
It's weird times that we are in, but yeah, it's been sort of a steep learning curve for everyone, right? Work at home was not something that anybody at Ather was sort of equipped for, or like was looking towards to. Because if you come to the office any point of time, any point, and I'm being serious about it, any point of time on any day, be it Saturday, Sunday, you'll find someone or the other at office all the time, right? Like people really enjoy working there. We really enjoyed going to office. There were no Monday blues for us. We'd always be looking forward towards the Monday, going and working back on exciting stuff and products, right? So for us to not being able to go to office is a huge setback right now. But having said that, we've actually managed quite well. We've been far more efficient than what we thought initially we'd be. So right now, most of the organization is working from home, except for the folks at factory, of course, who are coming around in alternate batches on alternate days to a factory. We've resumed production for the last few weeks. So that is happening. On the EC also, we have two teams who sort of alternately come to the EC stuff. But most of the org is right now working from home. We've been quite efficient. Meetings have become efficient, surprisingly. So that is an advantage. We're trying to also facilitate how our employees can work from home easily. So the admin team is helping them out if they want to, take their workstations back home. If they want chairs, tables, like stuff is being arranged for everyone so that it is not too difficult to work from home.
Okay, so like how does relations with different countries affect the ability of manufacturing to Ather? So considering Ather has parts or small parts from international dealers too.
Correct. Uh, so what we've done over the past 1 year or so is that we moved most of our manufacturing to India, right? Most of our suppliers are now based out of India. So currently, in current situations, stuff from our relationship with other countries right now doesn't affect us as much, right? But there are certain social political issues which somehow will have effect on business, but nothing affects us directly as such at this point of time because of the fact that we moved most of our manufacturing back to India. Uh, it helps us actually.
Okay. So also, sir, in a blog or an article, I had read that Ather used to source. I'm not sure about now. Used to source its, electric motors from China.
Mhm.
So, like, does it still, or like, what does it do now?
No, we've actually not sourced motors from China. So that, as far as I know, is not true. But right now we don't.
Okay.
We have a vendor is India based, so that's not an issue for us.
Okay. Okay. So now I think we can take up the questions from the comments.
Sure, sure.
So the first one will be from Vikas. How many years does it take for charging infrastructure to improve for intercity/town travel?
Yeah. So in fact, not very long. Like if, in fact, if you look at four-wheelers at least, this is something that you can do with fair amount of ease, with a little bit of uh, development in our charging infrastructure. We can definitely do that without too much of trouble. The current EVs, the four-wheeler EVs, at least if you look at the Nexon EV and the Kona and stuff, they have fairly good range of around 250, 300 kilometers, which is good for intracity travel, right? And even for long distance travel, if you manage it right, I think you can do it without too much hassle. In fact, we've had multiple customers of Ather who've done 1,500 kilometers plus trip on the Ather 450, which is incredible in itself, right? So while it is a little cumbersome when it is with a scooter, because you are limited by the kind of speeds that you can do, but at least in the four-wheeler space, it is fairly easy right away to do that. In the two-wheeler space as well, with the reduction in charging time, we'd be able to get there. Right? We'll just need far more, like we definitely need to develop a charging infrastructure to have more public charging stations, fast charging stations, which will allow us to do that. But on the product side, I think we are there. At least in the four-wheeler market, we are there. In two-wheelers also, in next couple of years, we should be there.
Okay, thank you, sir. Next one is from Tejas. How safe is an EV during a fire since it uses batteries which are very reactive to high temperatures? How do you overcome the challenge?
Correct. So the way we've designed our batteries and our vehicle is similar to any other IC engine vehicle as well, right? Of course, it is not fireproof, so it is susceptible to fire. It definitely will do damage, but to a large extent, you have enough time for yourself, to get to a safe place before anything happens, actually, to the battery pack. In fact, we've tested this, and our battery pack is also made in a way where if, say, any reaction happens on the inside of the battery, the pack doesn't explode, and it is able to contain that reaction or explosion within the battery pack, right? And we've put multiple safety features and fuses within the battery, which sort of takes care that the explosion inside the battery doesn't propagate to the rest of the battery area, right? So it has been compartmentalized accordingly. Also, the fire from outside, I think, again, in the similar fashion, we've made it in a way where it doesn't affect it as much unless there is a severe fire and the EV is lying there for a very long time.
Okay, sir, what about a crash? If there's a crash and the battery pack's damaged?
So far, we've had a few amount of crashes, like of our customers, of our internal testing teams, and we've not faced these issues. We've designed for these failure modes very actively, so I think you're safe. It shouldn't be too much of an issue in case of accidents.
Okay. Next one is from Prakshit Abhiyar. What is your advice for a young design engineer, and in how many number of softwares must he have a good grip on if he's starting out?
See, a lot of times in today's day and age, what we do ourselves is like we make ourselves subject to, or we sort of measure our capacity or capabilities in terms of the number of softwares that which is not true actually, right? Softwares are just tools for you to carry out a certain operation. So what you need to do is just be clear in your fundamentals, and that is, I think, going to take you places rather than knowing 20 softwares, right? So be good in your fundamentals and be open to learning something new, right? Softwares will keep on, like some or the other software keeps popping up every year, right? So what you should train yourself to do, or what you should be open to do, is just learn new stuff as soon as possible. That will sort of give you uh, an edge and an ability to be always ahead of the curve and be clear in your fundamentals. I think these two things sort of are really important. Given how much tech is being introduced and uh, into the vehicle development process in any product development process, the interference of tech is now much higher. There's new softwares, the new ways of doing things. There's AI. There's so many things that are coming in, right? So it is important that you are willing to learn something new always, and be just clear in your fundamentals, and that should take you places.
Okay. Next question from Tejas again. Is the company considering to move into the cars bikes? If yes, how challenging would it be to sustain the market where big companies have already made a base?
Yeah. So yes, we are definitely thinking of expanding our product portfolio. I'm not in a position to right now comment whether it is going to be only two-wheelers or four-wheelers. It can be both. It can't be both, like or not. So I'm not open to comment on that. But yes, it will be challenging. It will be equally challenging as it was in the scooter market as well, because scooter market, in fact, is one of the most established markets in India, and a market which is very difficult to get into. And we've been able to very positively disrupt this market and sort of make a niche for ourselves. So I'm sure that we'll be able to rise up to the challenge in the other markets as well and do the same thing.
Okay. Again from Tejas, Ather scooters are priced at 1.35 lakhs currently. How long would the batteries last before it wears? Because price is what people are concerned of, considering replacement of batteries are pretty costly.
That's a very fair question. That's a question that we also take very seriously. We are doing multiple things so as to get rid of this anxiety from our customers. The first thing is our battery have a warranty for around 50,000 kilometers. If I'm not wrong, I might have to check back on that number, but as far as I know, it is around 50,000 kilometers. Post which is when it starts degrading. And when I'm talking about 50,000 kilometers, that is the warranty that we gave for the battery, and post which it is not at a state where you'll have to discard it, right? That is when its performance will start deteriorating. Correct. You could still use the battery for another 50,000 kilometers or so, right? But what will happen will be there'll be certain drop in your performance, correct? And this will be like eventual over a period of time. So there's no sudden drop in the performance, or there's no sudden discardment of the battery which is required. Having said that, that is a problem, or that is an issue that's a concern for a lot of our customers, and we are working with different models in which you can sort of subscription models as well, where you could subscribe the battery from us. And having done that, what will happen is you'll always have a battery pack which operates to its maximum performance, and there will be never a degradation for the battery pack that you have. So we are working with innovative ownership models on that aspect as well, where we can always make sure that you never have a drop in performance of the vehicle.
Can I ask what happens to the batteries? Once they start degrading, I'm sure the customer wants to swap out. So once the new battery is put in, what happens to the old one?
See, for the old ones, there is definitely upcycling that we're going to do, but this is a problem that we've not hit so far, right? We are still a few years away from it, but this is a problem that we are currently working on, and there are multiple solutions right now in which we can solve this problem, but we've not arrived at one. So once we've sort of arrived at a solution is when I'll be able to comment on it. But yes, this is an issue that we are trying to solve at this point of time.
Okay, and the last question will be from Tejas again. Can we consider the possibility of self-driving for two-wheelers?
While it will be exciting to look at and really fun to look at, I'm not sure the value proposition of a self-driving two-wheeler. So I don't know. Like I think self-driving, autonomous vehicles, if they are, I think they'll mostly be, limited to four-wheelers or mass mobility like buses or trucks or stuff like that, and might not come down to two-wheelers. There have been OEMs who've tried that. There's been Yamaha who's done something. There's Honda has also done something in the past on riderless two-wheelers. But I personally don't see what kind of a value proposition that product will have and who will buy it. So I'm not very sure of that thing. You know Picking up. But yeah, autonomous four-wheelers, definitely we are almost there. Like we should be seeing something really cool in the next couple of years.
Okay. So right now, Ather, it's more like consumer oriented, trying to give out electric EV. I mean, a very good performing electric EV at a reasonable price. I mean, which by itself is fast, but when we compare it to say Energica Eco, like
Mhm.
the highly sporty variant of electric EVs, do we see Ather moving towards that, or is it going to stick to consumer variant?
Uh, if correct me if I'm wrong, when you're saying consumer variant, you're talking about like a mass market sort of a thing, and not like a highly specialized sports dedicated variant, right? Like
Yes, sir.
very performance oriented
Yes,
vehicle.
sir. Yes, sir.
Just a second, give me a moment. I'll just switch on the lights because.
Okay.
Hello.
Yeah. Yes, sir.
Yeah, sorry for that. Yeah, so I think right now, with the 450X that we've announced, we are already the fastest scooter in the market. So I think we've covered the performance aspect of things quite well. Uh, Whether we'll do a higher performance version in the future or not, that is up for debate, of course. And I think we might for sure. Uh, but there'll always be something which we'll always try to play a balanced role where we have something for the mass market as well as something which is much more performance oriented as well, right? So
Okay.
it would never be not exciting to ride. It'll always be exciting.
Yes, sir. So another question from my end, like
Yeah.
on your LinkedIn profile, you said it says you work on CAS modeling, sorry, class A
Yes.
surfacing,
Yes.
and could you please explain a little more on surface design and some important aspects when it comes to designing something that the consumer touches and feels?
Mhm. Yeah, so that is the role that I joined Ather with. Now I've sort of moved on to another role. But having said that, surface designing is basically when when people design. Most of the times it is when we design. Most of the time it is sketches, right? Now those sketches have to be translated onto a physical model. How do we do that? From sketches, we translate first them onto 3D models, right? These 3D model, translating them into 3D models initially, where we can sort of capture the soul and spirit of the sketch and have it translated into a 3D model. That is what CAS modeling is about, right? Once CAS modeling is done, this is a very iterative process and goes on for a very long time. Once we've arrived at a CAS model which has a go ahead from the design team, we sort of start converting into classes surfacing. Now, classes surfaces are basically any surface that you sort of touch and feel or interact with on a vehicle is a classes surface, right? Uh, so we have to take extra care on on the quality of these surfaces, right? Because any small undulation that you sort of leave around on the 3D model will sort of come out onto the product as well. So you need to make sure that you have a really high class, really good surface models. There are multiple techniques to check uh, whether you have a good classes office or not. Uh, Details of which we can sort of take it up later, but uh, uh, that is what we look at. Like when you you know uh, put your hand over the surfaces, or the body of the vehicle, you shouldn't it shouldn't feel unnatural, or it shouldn't give you any sense of defect on it. That is what we ensure with classes of.
Okay. Also, we have another question from Abai coming in. What are the job opportunities at Ather for electrical engineers?
Oh, there are job opportunities in Ather for electrical engineers. I won't be able to comment on whether we have any open positions right now, but there definitely are a lot of opportunities at Ather for electrical engineers.
Okay. So we'll just wait for a few minutes if we see any questions, and then we can wind up. Yeah. Also, sir, I had a question from my end.
Sure.
I myself, I was trying to figure out if I'm into design or analysis, and then I totally ruled out analysis because I don't like it personally. So
Fair.
when I'm entering into design, how do I put it? Okay, so, now I know a few softwares, like just one or two, let's say Creo, Inventor. So
Okay.
can you give me some suggestions that I can practice on, or any yeah, like I'm not able to put the question. I hope you understood it.
Yeah. So, like I said, don't be limited by software.
Okay.
But something that definitely comes in handy is SolidWorks, is what I've seen for new for fresh off the college engineers. That is that is something that comes in really handy, at least at Ather. So that is something probably that you could practice on. But I would still suggest that don't be limited by softwares. Always be willing to learn something new. Have your fundamentals right, and that will sort of suffice for everything.
Okay. Also, I believe this question is necessary. Like right now, we are in our final years. So, what advice would you give them, considering we have a pandemic right now and there won't be enough jobs later on? So, what is your advice to that? So,
See, I think there's always a great opportunity hidden in a crisis. While it might sound a little phony and preachy right now, but that is something which I've found to be really true. And uh, there is a crisis now. Yes, there'll be a change in which we do things. Yes, but there's also a great opportunity that lies somewhere around there, right? You might not be able to see it right away, but if you dig in deep enough, if you dig in enough, you'd definitely be able to find an opportunity. There's a lot of ways in which you can do things. You don't necessarily, yeah, maybe job opportunities might be limited, but there are a lot of other things in which you can keep yourself engaged and sort of earn as well. There are a lot of freelancing opportunities that have started coming up on the engineering front as well. You guys should be open to that. You guys should uh, look very proactively towards freelancing job options online. I'm pretty sure I'm pretty aware that there are a lot of opportunities on the freelancing end out there, which I guess you guys can do on your free time right now, and even full time once you've passed on college, and before you move on to your full time jobs. But freelancing is something which, at least in India, we don't take it that seriously, but is a great way, A, to gain experience, and B, to earn a living as well. So be open to freelance opportunities. I think that's going to be that's really important, and it not only helps you in developing your core skills or your engineering skills, but there are a lot of other things that goes around freelancing, which the other life lessons which are to be learned there. So I would really suggest you guys to explore freelancing more. And I'm sure if you guys look enough, there'll be uh, uh, there'll be enough opportunities for you guys.
Okay. Also, I have one last question, which most of the engineers ask. When once we graduate, is it better to do a job, or some people go for masters directly? So, what are your opinions on it, considering you have done masters? So, should there be a gap, or
It's a to each his own sort of a thing, right? Uh, you need to sort of ask that question to yourself. While personally, in my opinion, I think having some sort of an industry experience helps in moving on to doing a master's, and it helps in a couple of ways. One is, like, it gives you a lot of corporate lessons, life lessons, which I think are important before you move on to something as big as doing a master's. The second thing is, it adds really well to your portfolio as well when you're applying for masters to other colleges. So I think that is an added advantage of gaining some sort of a job experience. So, if you ask me for my personal opinion, I would suggest that you gain a couple of years of experience before moving on to doing a master's.
okay? So, how
I
one?
think Tejas Manjunath has some more questions. If
Yeah. So they just many people feel. I mean, many people want the field to hear the roar of IC engines. Have you considered adding sound effects? Okay.
So, a lot of people ask us this, uh, but I think we have a very signature sound with the. Even though people call EVs to be silent, I think they have a very signature sound that accompanies them. And at least for Ather, a lot of people actually have started identifying Ather without having to see it these days on the roads, because of the sound, the very signature sound that it makes, right? So for us, being honest to the tech that we are using, the product that we are building is more important. Hence, we don't add any other sound effects, because that is not being true to the product, right? That is not an honest reflection of what the product is. Hence, we stay away from adding any other sound effects, and we stay true to what we are and what we are building.
Okay. And how can a person interested in EVs join Ather?
I'm sure our website will have an open positions page, right? So probably you can look it up there. Also, if you can, on LinkedIn, you can reach out to our HR to our HR team and ask them directly if there are any positions available. Also, we pick up a lot of students from the Baha events and Formula SAE events and all. So if you are an active participant there, you can find a lot of Ather employees in the organizing committee, in the judging committee there. So you guys can reach out to them as well.
Okay. Thank you, sir. So I think that's it. Those are the questions for today, and we can wind up. So thank you, sir. Thank you for sharing your experience.
Sure, pleasure. I'd like to apologize again on behalf of Bikash, who was not here because of ill health. I'm sure there were a few questions which I couldn't do justice to completely because of the absence of Bikash. Probably he would have been able to answer them because in a lot deeper fashion, because those are the areas of expertise that he has. But I hope I was able to still skim through the surface of a few of these things, and it was an enjoyable experience for you guys, with some sort of insights that you guys can take back with you.
Definitely, sir. Thank you so much for the session, sir.
Sure, no problem at all.
Thank you, sir. And to all the attendees, thank you for attending, and hope this was an informative session. So thank you.
Thank you, guys. Thank you, Tarun.
Thank
We'll
you,
be in touch
sir.
with you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes, sir.